Today our discussion topic is climate change. Here we will learn about it in details.
You know, I've been thinking a lot about climate change lately. It's overwhelming to consider all the ways in which our environment is deteriorating. It seems like every day there's news about wildfires, floods, or record-breaking temperatures. How do we even start to tackle something so big?
Yeah, it's a daunting issue for sure. The science is clear, though human activity is driving these extreme weather events. I think one of the key things is to start at the local level, making changes that impact our immediate environment. At the same time, there needs to be pressure on governments and corporations to take broader action.
Local changes sound like a good place to start. What do you think we can do individually to make a difference? I try to recycle and reduce waste, but it feels like a drop in the bucket. Should we be focusing more on activism and pushing for policy changes?
Recycling and reducing waste are great steps, but you're right, they are not enough by themselves. Activism and policy change are crucial. You could get involved with local environmental groups or campaigns focused on climate policy. There's also a lot of power in voting for leaders who prioritize sustainability and climate action.
I agree, voting is important, but sometimes it feels like politicians just don't take it seriously enough. Even those who talk about climate change seem to lack concrete plans. Do you think it's because there's too much influence from industries that benefit from the status quo? It makes me wonder if we'll ever see real change at the top.
There's definitely a lot of industry influence, especially from fossil fuel companies. They have a vested interest in maintaining the current system, which makes it challenging for politicians to push for significant changes. However, public opinion is shifting, and more people are recognizing the need for action. The key is to keep building momentum and demanding accountability from our leaders.
It's encouraging to see that public opinion is changing. I think social media has played a big role in raising awareness about climate issues. People are sharing stories and data that might not have been as visible before. Do you think social media activism can lead to tangible change, or is it just noise?
Social media can be a powerful tool for raising awareness and mobilizing people. It can also amplify voices that might otherwise go unheard. But you're right, there's a risk of it being just noise without meaningful action. The challenge is turning online activism into real-world initiatives and ensuring it leads to concrete results.
That's the tricky part, turning online enthusiasm into real-world action. Maybe that's where local groups and community-based initiatives come in. By getting involved with others who share our concerns, we can create a network of support and push for changes together. What do you think about the role of education in this? Should we be focusing more on climate education in schools?
Education is definitely key. If we can instill a sense of environmental responsibility in young people, they'll carry it with them throughout their lives. Climate education can also help dispel myths and misinformation about climate change. Schools should be teaching not just the science but also the social and economic aspects of the issue.
I completely agree. If kids grow up understanding the impact of climate change, they're more likely to take action as adults. Plus, it can create a ripple effect, where they influence their parents and communities. Do you think we should be doing more to promote sustainable practices in schools, like recycling programs and energy-efficient buildings?
Absolutely, schools should be role models for sustainability. Recycling programs and energy-efficient buildings are great steps. They can also implement gardens and teach kids about local food production, composting, and other sustainable practices. These initiatives not only reduce the school's environmental footprint, but also provide hands-on learning experiences for students.
I think one of the big problems is that people still see climate change as a political issue instead of a scientific one. It really shouldn't be about politics, it's about our future and the planet's survival. Unfortunately, some leaders are still denying the science. It makes it harder to take collective action when the issue is so polarized.
True, but I think there's hope with the younger generation. They're more aware and more vocal about climate change. Look at all the climate strikes and movements like Fridays for Future. It's inspiring to see young people demanding action and accountability.
Yeah, I agree. The younger generation is definitely more engaged, but we still need systemic changes to make a real impact. Governments need to commit to reducing carbon emissions, and corporations must be held accountable for their role in climate change. It's not enough for individuals to recycle and reduce their carbon footprint, the major polluters have to change their practices. Yeah, international cooperation is key. It's also important to consider climate justice because some countries are more vulnerable to climate change than others. Developing nations often bear the brunt of the impact despite contributing the least to the problem. We need to ensure that climate solutions are equitable and that richer countries help those who need it most.
And we can't forget about the importance of international cooperation. Climate change is a global issue, and it requires a global response. Agreements like the Paris Accord are a step in the right direction, but countries need to follow through on their commitments. It's one thing to set targets, but it's another to achieve them.
Adaptation is definitely crucial, especially for those living in low-lying areas or regions prone to extreme weather. It's also a matter of survival for many species and ecosystems. If we don't act quickly, we could lose significant biodiversity, which would have ripple effects throughout the environment. It's not just about preserving nature, it's about maintaining the balance that sustains us all.
That's a good point. Climate change exacerbates existing inequalities, and it's the most vulnerable populations who suffer the most. We need to focus on adaptation as much as mitigation, helping communities build resilience against climate impacts. It's not just about preventing further damage, it's about addressing the damage that's already been done.
Absolutely. I think we also need to keep climate change in the public discourse. The more people talk about it, the more pressure there is to take action. We can't let it fade into the background just because other issues come up. It has to remain a priority if we're going to make real progress.
And that means holding our leaders accountable. If they don't take climate change seriously, we need to elect those who do. It's our future at stake, and we can't afford to be passive. Voting for leaders who prioritize the environment is a crucial step toward change.
You're right. I think it's also important to stay informed and support organizations that are doing good work on climate issues. There are so many groups out there advocating for change and providing resources to help people get involved. By supporting them, we can amplify their impact and contribute to the cause.
Yes, and one thing I've noticed is that when people start learning about climate change, they often feel a sense of helplessness. It's a big, complex issue, and it's easy to feel like our individual actions don't matter. But even small changes can add up, especially when we work together. We have to keep reminding people that there's hope and that we can make a difference.
Absolutely. It's about finding ways to make sustainable choices part of our everyday lives. Things like reducing waste, using public transportation, and supporting renewable energy are all steps in the right direction. It's also about educating others and encouraging them to do the same. The more we spread the word, the more momentum we create for change.
I think it's also important to focus on the positive aspects of addressing climate change. It's not just about avoiding disaster, it's about creating a better world. Cleaner air, healthier ecosystems, and a more sustainable economy are all benefits of taking action. By framing it in a positive light, we can inspire more people to get on board.
That's a good point. We often focus on the negatives, but there are so many positives to look forward to. Renewable energy can create jobs and boost the economy, and preserving nature can improve our quality of life. It's about finding a better balance with the environment and building a more sustainable future for everyone.
Exactly. I think if we focus on these benefits and work together, we can make a real impact. It's not going to be easy, but it's worth the effort. Climate change is the defining issue of our time, and we have the power to shape the future if we act now.
Those are fantastic ideas. It's crucial to embed sustainability into everyday practices, so it becomes second nature. I think that's part of the problem. We've become so accustomed to convenience and consumerism that it's hard to break the habit. What about green technology? Should we be investing more in innovations like solar and wind power?
Green technology is definitely a big part of the solution. Solar and wind power are becoming more accessible and cost-effective. Investing in these technologies can reduce our reliance on fossil fuels and lower greenhouse gas emissions. It's also a significant economic opportunity, creating new jobs and industries centered around renewable energy.
It sounds promising, but I worry about the transition period. Switching from fossil fuels to renewable energy won't happen overnight, and some industries will resist change. How can we ensure a smooth transition that doesn't leave people jobless or create new economic disparities? There needs to be a plan to support workers and communities that are affected by these shifts.
A just transition is crucial, ensuring that workers and communities are not left behind. This could mean retraining programs, investment in new industries, and financial support for those in transition. It's about creating a sustainable economy that benefits everyone, not just a select few. Governments and businesses need to work together to make this a priority.
I hope they do, because it feels like we're running out of time to make these changes. The longer we wait, the worse the impacts of climate change will be. Rising sea levels, more frequent extreme weather events, and loss of biodiversity are just a few of the risks we face. We can't afford to delay action any longer.
I hear you. The urgency is real, and the consequences of inaction are severe. It's easy to get discouraged, but there's also a lot of hope in the growing climate movement. If we can maintain the momentum and keep pushing for change, there's a chance we can turn things around before it's too late.
I think you're right, hope is essential. Without it, we might just give up, and that's not an option. The progress we've seen so far is a sign that change is possible, even if it's slow. Maybe if we all commit to doing our part, no matter how small, we can make a difference.
You are right, we should make people conscious about it.
Subscribe this channel for getting new videos and boost up your knowledge about current issues.